Hey, true believers and fellow Disney files. Man, I used to love Disney. Seriously, I'm a huge Disney fan, man. I live right outside the doors. You know, it's I've gone many times a year, every year since 1972. Seriously, I love the parks, or at least I loved the parks before. I would have to say Bob Iger. In all honesty, I think. And you cannot convince me otherwise that Bob Iger isn't tanking Disney on purpose. I've said this. I will say this in every damn live stream. He is tanking Disney on purpose. I think somebody got to him and said, we want to buy Disney. It's now $52,000 million. But if you could get it down to $48,000 million, then we'll give you $1,000 million. You know, that kind of
thing.
See,
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's opportunism. I think it's just he's not good at it.
No, Iger.
He's just not good at being a CEO.
He's not a dumb person. So, anywho, on Twitter today, two things have popped off. The first one, by the way, is the fact that Gina Carano is now going to sue Lucasfilms for wrongful termination. And the one that we're mainly going to focus on today is Elon Musk posted something I think we've seen before. And it's kind of the rules on how employees have to act and react when it comes to, I believe, movie hiring. I've got it all separated. So we're going to, because it's in sections, we're going to go section to section and talk about it. But it's amazing to me, guys. I did read some of it. It's like, oh, you've got to treat marginalized people differently. Well, why are you marginalizing these people? And by pointing out differences and such, aren't you marginalizing them? You know, just right out the gate, I hate this kind of talk. Because it's horseshit. Underrepresented since when? I mean, I've been around. I remember in the 1980s where the biggest freaking show in the world starred a very wealthy black family. Of course, the dad ended up being a rapist, but that's neither here nor there. In the 1980s,
well,
Bill Cosby was America's dad. Oh, and by the way, I will never say grape when I mean. Yeah, because you don't dilute some crimes. Hello to Samuel Proctor. Hello, Dark Admiral. Just a little heads up. We are broadcasting to the I Love Comics channel as well as the Disney channel. Kind of trying to reboot that thing. I've kind of let it die, and now it's time to clear. Yeah. And if it takes talking about this kind of stuff, well, we will. So anyway, I thought it would be fun, or at least it would be a topic to talk about us going through, talk about what they have in mind as far as this is not racist BS. I'm telling you, it's racist BS. And of course, with me, Dalton, the Authenticator.
Hello and good evening, everyone.
Let's check out these rules. We're going to go section to section here. The first one, this is standard A, on-screen representation. At least 3 of the following 5 areas need to be met to fulfill standard A. So if you're making a movie, you got to have at least 3 of these. Characters, 50% or more of regular and reoccurring written characters come from underrepresented groups. Remember, anytime you hear underrepresented groups, that means not white.
Well, it means white guilt. The group were guilty about how we treated them in the past. Basically, that's basically what that means.
No, not how we treated them. Maybe how they treat them. Don't let them project any shit on you. If you didn't treat people bad, boom. I'm sorry, but I am not ancestors. I am me, and I think these people, they're so full of crap, and they are so racist because they look down on anybody who isn't white to the point where they say, I am here and I will save you.
The generational guilt thing is also, am I the only one that's noticed this? Despite all this talk about, the marginalized and the etc. and the DEI and the ESG, they would still rather import a bunch of immigrants to do unskilled labor than ever deal with their own working class countrymen.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're that much classist snobs.
It also says actors or 50% more or regular and recurring actors come from underrepresented groups. And this is how you're getting, oh, well, this is set in 5th century England. Everybody's black. No.
Isn't merit the most underrepresented of all minorities? Surely
these days, yeah. Look, it's very much like that. Mandatory racism. So that mean we can admit that Mexican restaurants don't make tacos as good as actual Mexicans? Well, I definitely agree with that. I was I lived in Texas, and we had a Mexican family who lived in the apartment next to us, and we stayed there until my mom and dad came home from work. Holy Toledo! You got to go to mom and pop's to find a good Mexican restaurant. You're not going to find it under like Azteca or whatever it's called. All right.
Well, I mean, it's true of any kind of diner experience or like home cooking experience. You're better off with the mom and pops.
No, I'm not saying they can't, and I'm not saying non-Mexicans can't open a Mexican restaurant or any ethnic. It's just I tend to like the mom and pop shops. All right, so A3 says secondary character, meaningful inclusion of underrepresented groups, once again, not white, as secondary or more minor on-screen individuals, including background actors. But the thing is, look, here's you can actually get around a lot of discrimination laws by claiming instead of employees, you're hiring actors. Because you need them to fill a specific role. But the problem is if you need to fill a specific role and it isn't a black person, it isn't a Latino person or an Asian person, and in fact is white, then you're not representing. I have said this so many times on I Love Comics when we're talking about comic books and such like that. It is not, if you are bringing in, if you're just slapping a black face on a white character, that's not representation. It's presentation. It's like, hey, look, we've got black people. That's it.
And the same is true of the non-racial categories as well. The sexuality categories, the ableist category, etc.
If you want representation, make the characters whatever you want to represent. So A5 says episodic storytelling, ongoing, meaningful integration of underrepresented groups in episodic themes and narratives. I don't even know what they're talking about. It's just saying, hey, look, they could have done this in one setting. Hey, 50% of everything has to be not white male, as it's being pointed out.
And not here. Not heterosexual or traditionally able, etc.
You can't have straight white male. You have to have 50% of something. Now, look, it doesn't bother. See, and this is one thing that truly kind of grinds my gears when it comes to this whole thing. We'll say, wait a second. No, don't. We'll say something like, don't hire, just based on race. Hire the best. And these people go, oh, you're racist. No, I'm sorry, you racist mother. Hold on, let me finish because I am talking. I'm sorry, dude. But if we say hire the best and you don't hear that includes people who are not white males, then you're the racist. You're the sexist.
The problem is in your own head, yeah.
Yeah.
But here's
it's
another
the same thing when you would say, when people would go, Black Lives Matter, and you'd say, well, all lives matter. And they would get all mad because they don't hear black when they say all lives.
They hear it as a refutation rather than an addition. But yeah, the thing that baffles me here is if you want to tell quote unquote marginalized or multicultural stories, why don't you adapt some stories from those cultures? Adapt the Aesop fables, adapt the Anazi stories, etc., and so on. If you really must have every movie look like the cast of Black frickin' Panther, then there are stories from Africa, from what used to be called, the Orient, India, China, etc. There are stories from those cultures that you could very easily adapt, and those casts would be majoritarily whatever race you wanted, and you wouldn't have to be discriminatory. But it's not enough to simply adapt the stories that already belong, quote unquote, to those cultures. You have to gift those cultures stories that aren't usually traditionally theirs, quote unquote.
Let me see what these guys are saying here. As a Texan, England team knows exactly where I'm coming from. So, oh, okay. Mandatory racism. So does that mean we can admit? Okay. Yep. Jay Lucian just identify as black. That's it. Yeah. Actually, every time, like, you can identify as a woman if you're a man if a woman. But people always go, but no, because you can't identify
Racial categories of
race. And I believe the only reason why they're saying that is that they think they're going to get their asses kicked.
Or that Rachel Dole has already tried it and she failed horribly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, let's move to the next one here, to the second level. Standard B, creative leadership. At least 3 of these following 6 areas need to be met to fulfill Standard B. So one is 50% or more of producers above. Basically, it's going to be staff, right? Above on writing staff, and 50% or more of co-producer and below of writing staff come from underrepresented, not white people, not white guys, white straight males. So right off the bat, they're telling you straight up all throughout that it is actually okay to underrepresent one group. Straight up. I mean,
the one we've defined as quote unquote normal. Yeah.
What's that guy's name that's running the freaking critical race theory? He's dumb as that Abram guy who said that the only way to deal with past racism is to be racist today. I'm sorry, if you actually believe the way to deal with racism is to be racist, you're a dumbass. You are do not pass go, do not collect $200. As a matter of fact, pay. You're a dumbass. You're legitimately a dumbass. I mean, like, some people, like, I don't know, I think he might be a dumbass. No, if you actually believe that the way to handle racism is to be a racist, you're a fucking dumbass.
But that's the little canard at the heart of all of this. They won't be happy with just straight egalitarianism. They won't actually be happy with equality of opportunity or even equality of outcome. Right. They won't be happy until whatever perceived injustice that they feel they have been hard done by has been done to their quote-unquote oppressors in turn, and they flip the tables. They don't want equality. Exactly. They don't want neutral. I want to flip the script so entirely that the people who were once doing the lashing are now under the lash.
The problem is, of course, is that nobody today is being oppressed.
Well, no, but that's the generational guilt thing again.
Not this generation. Okay, so it says 50% or more of episodic directors come from underrepresented groups, casting directors from underrepresented groups, or has not previously worked on a DGE show in this role. I have no idea what DGE. Meaningful representation of underrepresented group and senior creative leadership. Promotion of a member of an underrepresented group into a role that constitutes career progression for at least one member of writing staff, and substantial year-over-year increases in members of under. So not only are you supposed to hire 50%, not based on race, by the way, none of this is based on merit. And this is what Charlie Kirk got in trouble for, because he says, well, now I'm going to question, if I see a black pilot, do I know that he's there because he's the best for the role, or or is he there because they just needed to fulfill a quota? That was what he was saying. But the thing is had you just hired, if you didn't announce this shit, if you just hired people, it would be assumed that you thought that they were best for the role. But they're straight up saying, no, we're not hiring these people because they're the best for the role. Some of these people are hired because we've got to fill out this list. And, we've got 3 white guys up here. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We got 3 white guys down here, and above them, we have to fill out others. So, some of them may be students.
In the hoary halls of academia, these people actually believe that focusing on merit would be Western chauvinism, because apparently, according to them, Western society came up with the concept of merit as we currently have it. And therefore, we have to exorcise the demon of meritocracy from every institution to once again repair the wounds of yesterday by inflicting wounds today.
So Spiffy is saying Authenticator is gay, right? I'm actually curious whether he's been called a homophobe by someone who knew he was gay.
I have
you been?
And
yeah,
I have, and more to the point, and relating to something that Jay Lucian jokingly pointed out down there. I get yelled at for being bisexual because, in the modern parlance of quote unquote LGBT, it's actually seen as oppressive or internalized oppression that bisexuals do have different beauty standards for different genders, as opposed to being pansexual, which is you don't discriminate based on any beauty standards whatsoever. You just like people indiscriminately, I suppose, or can like people indiscriminately.
All right, moving on here.
Yeah.
We're going to number B or C, which is standard C below the line. At least 2 of the following 5 areas. Okay. 50% or more of the line producers and production department have to be not white, male, or straight. 50% or more of other key roles cannot be white or male, or and not all these things together. 50% more of the overall crew or project staff comes from in the hiring line, audition, and that's what this whole thing is. It's basically saying, hey, look, you absolutely cannot hire people you can't hire a certain amount of white straight males. You have to make sure that these people are taken care of because, well, we are the white saviors. That's what they're saying. Disney has
just today's generation noble savage nonsense, basically.
Yeah. Industry access and career development. First job for members of underrepresented group in a role that constitutes career progression from prior training. Training opportunities and or skill development, craft and creative business, including one-off work experiences.
So correct me if I'm misreading that. That means that not only do you have to keep hiring these people on diversity hire credentials to roles that they're not qualified to begin with, but you actually have to make them fail upward. So it's not even you keep them at whatever level you bring them in at. It's you're required to let them and or encourage them to fail upward as much as possible.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. Producer development executive is a show specific D&I program subject to network appeal. This is why Disney's crashing, because they're not giving a shit about, are we actually hiring people because they're good? They're only hiring people, or I can't say only, but they've got in their freaking bylaws here that you have to make sure that there's enough people. And once again, it's been proven, by the way, when they lowered the standards for minorities into the colleges, those minorities who had benefit from the lower standards end up crashing out because they can't do it. They can't keep up. And that's not a knock. That's not a knock on entire races. It's a knock on the fact that you're letting C students into A colleges. But there's some fine print right here. Oh, go on ahead.
Oh, God. And as a result, the overall intelligence of people who graduate from colleges or who hold positions in colleges is going down. Recent studies have shown that it's an entire institution of midwits. God dang it.
Did you see that one video of the guy who asked the college students what's 15 times 4? And not one of them. They all said, yeah, 48. Oh. All right, this is the fine print. It says context is critical when evaluating a group. If a group is underrepresented, anyone involved in hiring decisions is prohibited from asking candidates and talent about their actual or perceived race, religion, or color, orientation, gender identity, military or veteran status, age, disability, or any legal. Okay, so think about what that just says right here. You're not allowed to ask a person's race. You're not allowed to ask a person for those qualities of which they just said they were supposed to hire you from. Seriously. So straight up, you could go, okay, I'm a black guy. Well, you don't look like, oh, you're not allowed to ask. So that's the most ridiculous statement of any of them is this right here. Anyone involved in hiring decisions is prohibited from asking candidates and talents about their actual perceived race, religion, color, orientation, gender identity. I like the fact that they separated gender and gender identity. I am a man.
Well,
I identify as a woman. So what the does that mean? Military or veterans? I mean, like, you're not allowed to ask on the exact they're freaking saying they got a hire on. So,
out of one side of their face, you must hire on identity, and meritocracy is the devil. Out of the other side of their face, don't you dare ask people about their identity, lest that be offensive. Therefore, we literally are going based on we're literally going based on their resume and or how devoted are they to the ideology, because that is the real qualifier here, because it doesn't matter. And you know, I am one example, Mr. E and Corrupt and JSG are all sorts of other examples. It doesn't matter how diverse your identity actually is if you don't align with the ideology of social justice, with the critical theory nonsense that came out of the Frankfurt School, and etc.
Yeah, I think that's more to do with it. If you can say you're black, but if you're not a black leftist, then yeah, you're not.
If you're not capital B black, then yeah.
Spiffy says, question still stands. My sister, who's bisexual, got in trouble for saying, well, that's gay to one of her friends who also happened to be gay. I don't even understand. Tell them to shut the fuck up.
They will do that. They will. And this is the other thing relating to what I just said. If you are of the necessary diversity credentials or necessary identity credentials, but you don't align with the ideology, you will be accused of effectively having Stockholm syndrome and being cynically turned against your own kind of brainwashed. That's what internalized hatred or internalized oppression or internalized homophobia / racism means. It means you don't submit to the ideology we think you should have based on your identity, therefore you have Stockholm syndrome and have been turned against your own kind and have internalized the other identity.